It is 0 hour 30 Universal Time. I'm Jim Tedder in Washington. Iraqi police say at least 22 people were killed as 2 separate bombs exploded in crowded markets near Baghdad. Many others were injured. 15 people were killed at a marketplace in Hilla, to the south of the city. Later, at least 7 others died when a bomb exploded in Bakuba. Also in Iraq, American military officials said an American soldier was killed in an attack. In Russia, the foreign minister confirmed the deaths of 4 embassy workers kidnapped in Baghdad earlier this month. Russia called on Iraq's government and the coalition forces in Iraq to help find and punish those responsible. A rebel group linked to Al-Qaeda says it killed the hostages to answer wrongs carried out by the Russian government. United Nations Secretary-General Kofi Annan is urging Israeli and Palestinian leaders to take all possible steps to avoid further violence. Mr. Annan has called for the safe and immediate release of Israeli soldier Gilad Shalit, who was taken hostage by Palestinian militants Sunday. Earlier, Israeli Prime Minister Ehud Olmert rejected demands of Palestinian militant groups to release all Palestinian women from Israeli prisons. In return, the group said they would give Israel information about the kidnapped Israeli soldier. The Popular Resistance Committees, the armed group within Hamas and the Islamic Army, made the joint demand. The Hamas-led Palestinian government has demanded that the groups release the Israeli soldier. President Bush has called on North Korea to tell the world its plans for a long-distance missile that reports say is being prepared for launch. Mr. Bush also said he is pleased that China has given a message to North Korean leaders that any launch would be seen as aggressive, and he urged the 3 nations in nuclear talks with North Korea to do the same. The disarmament talks with Japan, South Korea, and Russia have slowed since November. Earlier, officials from South Korea and China met in Beijing to talk about North Korea's missile plans. Experts say the missile in question is able to reach the United States. American investment expert Warren Buffett says he will give more than $30,000 million over a number of years to the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. The organization works against disease and poverty all over the world. Mr. Buffett says another $7,000 million will go to other causes. He says it is important for people with a lot of money to give some of it to others instead of passing huge amounts to their families. Warren Buffett is the world's 2nd richest man. The European Union is calling on all nations to sign a United Nations agreement against torture. The EU released a document on the special day named by the UN to support torture victims. The EU document says no torture is acceptable, and national security is no reason to permit any kind of torture. The group is investigating reports about the United States. The reports say the nation is holding terrorism suspects in secret prisons in Europe and other areas to avoid an American ban on torture. Group leaders also expressed concerns about the terrorist holding center at Guantanamo Bay, Cuba. You are listening to the news in VOA Special English. American Secretary of State Condoleezza Rice is traveling to Pakistan. A State Department spokesman says Ms. Rice will meet with Pakistan's President Pervez Musharraf. She will also talk with other Pakistani officials. Her 4-day trip will end with a meeting in Russia of foreign ministers from the world's 8 leading industrial nations. The ministers will be preparing for a meeting of those nations' leaders in St. Petersburg next month. The State Department said Ms. Rice will also meet with Russian officials in Moscow. A leading worldwide human resource company says Moscow is now the most costly city in the world for foreigners. A report by Mercer Human Resource Consulting said the prices in Moscow have been affected by its growing energy industry and growth as a business and financial services center. The study measures the costs of nearly 200 things, including housing, food, transportation, and health care. Tokyo was number 1 at the end of 2005 and was 3rd on the most recent list. Seoul was 2nd on the list. The United Nations is reporting progress in the fight against illegal drugs. The UN Office on Drug Control and Crime reports a 22% decrease in the worldwide growing of opium poppy. The flower is used to make the illegal drug heroin. The head of the UN Drug Control Office told reporters the international community has largely slowed the supply, demand, and selling of drugs. But he also said the drug problem in some countries has become worse. A new UN report about the drug problem says the use of cocaine in Western Europe is reaching dangerous levels. It also found that the worldwide use of marijuana continues to increase. The American capital city of Washington, D.C., is preparing for more rain after heavy storms caused some federal offices to close. Those offices closed were the Tax Collection Agency, the Commerce and Justice Departments, the National Gallery of Art, and the National Archives. The closings were announced after 18 centimeters of rain fell in Washington in a 24-hour period. The rain caused transportation problems and blocked roads. Weather experts warn of more flooding as rains continue for the next few days. And now, briefly, here again is the major news of the hour. Iraqi police say at least 22 people were killed as 2 separate bombs exploded in crowded markets near Baghdad. United Nations Secretary-General Kofi Annan is urging Israeli and Palestinian leaders to take all possible steps to avoid further violence. And President Bush has called on North Korea to tell the world its plans for a long-distance missile that reports say is being prepared for launch. And that's the news in VOA Special English. From rainy Washington, D.C., Jim Tedder reporting.